So my buddy Jack Sperry over at Pittsburgh Steelers Talk last week said we couldn't get 300 likes on a video. And unfortunately, he was right. We only did 222. But Sperry said, you know what? I'll give you guys a second chance. Can we prove Sperry and Steelers Talk wrong and get 300 likes on today's show? We only need about 78 more compared to what we did last time. Let's stick it to Steelers Talk, like today's video, and we'll get started with today's show. No need to fear. The trade deadline is near. On today's show, we are talking about 5 big-name star trade targets that the Baltimore Ravens could be bringing in at the NFL trade deadline coming up on October 31st. So without further ado, let's get started with Derrick Henry at the running back position from the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry has had a fantastic career, and he is well on his way to one day being a Hall of Famer. And what we've seen from Derrick Henry over the last several seasons has been nothing short of spectacular, as arguably the best running back in the National Football League, coming off a Pro Bowl appearance last year, the third of his career in 2020, the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year, and a guy that has shown off not just the power, but the speed as well to be able to lead the league in rushing and touchdowns, not once, but twice. And I know what some of you may be thinking, that the Ravens' run game has held up decent without J.K. Dobbins. Am I saying that Gus Edwards and Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell and these guys all of a sudden needed to be kicked to the curb? Not saying that at all. What bringing in Derrick Henry would do, or another running back for that matter, would be an insurance policy, because what we have seen already, not just J.K. Dobbins, but other running backs for this Baltimore Ravens team have gotten banged up. And it's been about survival at this position to begin the year at this point. So if you're bringing in Derrick Henry, it's not just to add a dynamic player to your offense, which he would be doing so, but also to give you another body just to make it through the season. You look at the rushing statistics for the Ravens right now. Lamar is leading the Ravens in rushing, just a little bit over Gus Edwards, each with over 345 yards so far this season. 5 touchdowns for Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards with 2. And what we've heard from Todd Monken, what he wants to do with this Ravens offense is not force Lamar to run the football as much, that they need a run game that they can trust where Lamar doesn't have to improvise and do so much, that they want him to be more of a pocket passer. So where would Derrick Henry fall into the equation? You may recall Derrick Henry just a couple of weeks ago when the Ravens played the Tennessee Titans looked really, really good. As so far this season, he's averaging 10 yards a carry with 425 yards, 3 touchdowns. So despite getting older, Derrick Henry is still playing at an extremely high level to this point in time and would be a welcome addition for this Baltimore Ravens team. You could probably pull him in for about a second or third round pick potentially there before the deadline next week. So, our pinned comment today. What do you think? Should Baltimore trade for Derrick Henry? If you think they should, type T for trade. If not, type P for pass. Chime in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Next on our list is Brian Burns, outside linebacker from the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are a bad team, arguably the worst team in the league at this point. And Brian Burns is their most valuable trade chip at this point in time to try to get assets of some sorts to build for their future, with him not being on the timeline of where the Carolina Panthers are at. So what are you getting out of a player like Brian Burns potentially? A 2-time Pro Bowler that had a career high in sacks last year with 12.5. And in his short career, he's already 5th all-time on the Panthers' all-time sack list with 42 total sacks in his career. So here's a guy that is just really getting started, right? Just a few years in, and yet we're already seeing him play at as high of a level as anybody in football, and he's really just kicking this thing in gear. So with that in mind, Burns is young and still coming into his own. If he's this good right now, how good is he going to be years from now when he is fully in his prime, fully invested and ready to go? Watch out. You're getting him to jump on in, and you pair him with Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen and those guys, all of a sudden you're cooking with bacon grease. The numbers from Brian Burns, what we've seen in his career. We mentioned the 12.5 sacks last year. He looks really good this year, too. Already with 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, and 20 tackles. The thing with Brian Burns, though, is that he would not necessarily be cheap. As you may recall, last year, according to reports from ESPN's Adam Schefter, the Carolina Panthers were offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns and turned it down. They're likely not going to get that offer again. Maybe you could pull it off with a first and a third or first and a fourth. Asking price much cheaper than it was then, but still not cheap to bring in a player of Brian Burns' caliber. Today's show is sponsored by BetUS, the exclusive sportsbook partner of Chat Sports. If you go to chatsports.com/bet, enter the promo code CHAT125, you will get a 125% deposit bonus. Put $100 down, and you get $125 to spend for free at chatsports.com/bet. The odds for this weekend's game, your Baltimore Ravens are a 9-point favorite as they head out west to take on Arizona. The over-under is 44. If you want to bet on this game as well as other action across the NFL, you can do so now. Get your bets in today. Chatsports.com/bet, promo code CHAT125 to get your bets in now. Next on our list is Saquon Barkley, running back for the New York Football Giants. And Saquon already has dealt with a little bit of injuries this year, but nonetheless, you can't argue with the talent that Saquon Barkley brings to the table. A 2-time Pro Bowler, the NFL's Offensive Rookie of the Year, and already setting records in his short career in the league so far. 4 NFL records, 5 Giants franchise records. And I'll say this, Derrick Henry would be my first choice if I'm choosing between the two. If all things are equal between Henry and Saquon Barkley, I'm taking Derrick Henry because he's got a better track record, although Saquon's is very good. But this is still another very good option potentially. If I can't get Derrick Henry and I have to settle for Saquon Barkley, I'm not too upset about it. You're still getting a receiver or a running back rather, that plays at an extremely high level that's also effective in the passing game as well, that would add a dynamic element to this offense. Saquon's numbers this year, even with dealing with a little bit of injuries to start off the season, still is coming in averaging 5.4 yards per carry with nearly 300 yards, a touchdown, 74 carries. You go back to last year, he was a huge part of the Giants' playoff run with over 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley is fantastic. You look at this Ravens backfield depth chart right now. With Keaton Mitchell injured at the moment, you only have 2 healthy running backs. And I'll be frank, I do not want to have to call up Melvin Gordon. I don't want to have to go bring Kenyon Drake back if I don't have to. If I can go forward with Saquon or Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell be my number 4 back, sign me up. That makes a ton of sense. Which back would you rather roll with? Given the choice, would you rather make the trade for Derrick Henry or for Saquon Barkley? Type D for Derrick Henry, type S for Saquon Barkley. Chime in that comment section. Let us know which one you would take. Number 4 on our list is Danielle Hunter, the outside linebacker from the Minnesota Vikings. And Danielle Hunter is having a career season so far in 2023 as he leads the NFL in sacks with 9 so far this season. I mean, they might want to drug test him or something because he is doing things that are just out of this world so far in 2023. It's a second-team All-Pro back in 2018, and what a story for Danielle Hunter. As a 3-time Pro Bowler as recently as last year, this is somebody that had a neck injury that forced him to miss an entire season a couple of years ago. That would have ended most players' careers. Instead, he's come back with vengeance and playing the best football of his career right now. Now, I'll say this. The difference between him and a Brian Burns trade, it's going to be harder to bring in Danielle Hunter now after the Vikings win over the San Francisco 49ers. Now, all of a sudden, after everybody thought the Vikings were going to be sellers at the deadline, that might change potentially. That could have breathed new life for the Minnesota Vikings to make a harder playoff push of some sorts now. So Brian Burns is the more expensive option, but it's easier to get the trade done because of the position the Panthers are in, comparably speaking, to where the Vikings are in. The numbers for Danielle Hunter, consistency is the common theme here. You go back to 2021, his first season back after the neck injury, he had 6 sacks in 7 games. Followed that up last year with 10.5 sacks in 17 games, and then you look at these numbers this year, nothing short of spectacular. He's been a lot of fun to watch and been maybe the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year so far in the NFL. More to come here on Ravens Rundown in just a moment. But first, I want to make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel as we're talking about your Baltimore Ravens each and every day. We are on track to 13,000 subscribers, just over 200 away from reaching that next milestone. For more Ravens news, rumors, live shows, watch parties, Q&A mailbags, and more, this is the channel for you. Subscribe now for free, youtube.com/RavensTV. Join the family and never miss a moment of the latest happenings on your Baltimore Ravens right here on Ravens Rundown. Last on our list is wide receiver Courtland Sutton from the Denver Broncos. And Courtland Sutton, I got to tell you, credit where credit's due. I know that his NFL career has been one of peaks and valleys, very up and down. But so far this year, even though the Denver Broncos have not played good football at all in 2023, Courtland Sutton has looked really good. The 2019 Pro Bowler leads every statistic for the Broncos in receiving, including over Jerry Jeudy, who's been the talked-about name when it comes to wide receiver targets there for that Denver Broncos team for over a year now. And it's not just what he's doing in Denver. I know the Denver Broncos aren't a very good football team, but even with that said and having to deal with Russell Wilson, that bum as your quarterback, he is putting up numbers that compare with some of the best in the NFL. Currently tied for 4th in the league in receiving touchdowns with 5 this season, tied with Mark Andrews, by the way, for that number. While the Ravens don't necessarily need help at wide receiver, this would be a little extra of some sorts, right? This would be icing on the cake if you're going to bring Courtland Sutton in. Because here's the deal. He's going to be at a discount. He's not going to cost a ton. You're looking at maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick to bring in a player of this caliber. And it might just be too hard not to pass up potentially if he's out there for a Ravens team that's all in on trying to contend and win a Super Bowl this year. His statistics so far this season, 351 yards, 5 touchdowns, and you go back to last year, 829 yards, 2 touchdowns. Compare that to the receivers for the Baltimore Ravens right now, and he'd be a natural fit right there with Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews. And you think from a schematical standpoint, who are you going to cover at that point? You can't double Mark Andrews. You can't double Zay Flowers. This opens this offense to a whole nother level if you bring Courtland Sutton into the fold and add him to the mix there. Who's the player the Ravens should trade for? We've named all 5 guys. What say you? Chime in the comment section. Give us another name that you would like to see with this Baltimore Ravens team. To recap, our trade targets for the Ravens include Derrick Henry, Brian Burns, Saquon Barkley, Danielle Hunter, and Courtland Sutton. We saw the Ravens be aggressive last year at the trade deadline, bring in Roquan Smith. Will they make another move? If they do, you know we're going to be all over it here on the channel and tell you all about it. Also, quick plug on our main Chat Sports channel, our NFL Power Rankings for week number 8. That video is out. Find out where the Ravens land and the rest of the breakdown of the National Football League. The link is in the comments in the description for this video. If you enjoyed today's show, want to stick it to Pittsburgh Steelers talk, like the video. Let's get 300 likes on today's video. Make it happen, and I'll see you next time here on Ravens Rundown.